What when? Let's go to the next one.
What's
Would
what?
would you be okay with your friend doing business with your enemy?
You asking me?
Yeah.
I can't go to the Max B party because you're my friend. Yeah,
Why?
because you my friend.
What?
Yeah. Talk about it.
What's up, everybody? This is the world famous Ed Lover, and you are watching Forgotten Kings TV. That's right, Forgotten Kings TV. Come on, son.
Listen, y'all, we are days away from Max B officially coming home. Okay, I know we've heard that on several occasions, but this time it's for real. Okay, November 9th is the date. And apparently his name continues to come up in this Let's Rap About It podcast featuring Jim Jones, Maino, Fabulous, and Davies. Now, again, if you're not familiar with the podcast, I'll make sure to leave the link in the description so you can check out the full episodes that have been released, you know what I mean, at this point. But listen, as we all know, a lot of rappers are now transitioning into this podcasting space. And for whatever reason, Max B name has come up multiple times on this podcast. Now, at first, Maino made attempts to end the beef between Jim Jones, right, and Max B. And there was some resistance on behalf of Jim Jones, which was interesting considering that Jim Jones and French Montana was seen patching up their issues, right? We even seen video of Jim Jones with Max B's son. So to hear him verbally say, like, I ain't really feeling a, reunion with Max B, kind of had people looking at him crazy. Well, this episode, ironically, the conversation is about celebrity relationships in hip hop, okay? And considering Jim Jones, right, with Chrissy on Loving Hip Hop, the reality show, this whole topic comes up. And then out of nowhere, here come Maino, bringing up Max B name. I want y'all to check out the exchange between Maino and Jim Jones, because again, you can tell Jim Jones is looking at Maino like, yeah, what are we doing here? Come on. Now, granted, the camera's rolling, but it makes you wonder. You know what I'm saying? What we doing here, man? Are we trying to go viral? Because you keep bringing up homie name. And obviously it makes Jim Jones feel a certain way. So let's get into this clip so y'all can check it out exactly. I know y'all like, God damn it, shut up, play the video. Listen, I got to set the table for y'all. All right, make sure you like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, let's get right into this so y'all can hear exactly how this exchange happened between Jim Jones and Maino. Because last time it was some back and forth, but this time it's just like, come on, Maino. You're doing too much, but let's get right into it.
My Muslim brother, check this out. At the end of the day, I'm a person that your enemies is my enemies, because that's the love that I got for you. If we like that, then I'm gonna take on whatever it is that you got going on. And
Let's go to the next one. Would you be okay with your friend doing business with your enemy?
You asking me?
Yeah.
I can't go to the Max B party because you're my friend. Yeah.
Why?
Because you my friend. Yeah. Talk about it. Because let me explain something to you. I'm a loyal at the end of the day. Before music. Let me tell you something. Let me explain something to you, David. Mr. David.
Dawood. I'm Dawood on this podcast.
I like that.
That's crazy.
My Muslim brother. Check this out. At the end of the day, I'm a person that your enemies is my enemies, because that's the love that I got for you. If we like that, then I'm gonna take on whatever it is that you got going on, and it's dumb. Then I gotta feel the same way. If everybody don't come from that world, that's the world I come from. So what I'm saying is, I wouldn't be okay because we're congregating with my enemies.
Right.
I would not be okay, because you know why? I wouldn't do the same. I would not do the same.
I respect you for that.
Yeah, I respect that. If that's your friends, that's your friend. Why would you want to be with your friend's enemy? It just really don't add up, to be honest.
Now, this is a general question. I don't want people to be thinking this is about what this nut ass.
I'm just saying, at the end of the day.
All right, y'all, as you can see, Maino once again brings up Max B name. Now, again, Jim Jones, he raised the question, but considering just an episode or two ago, you already brought up Max B name. we days away from Max B's official release. I mean, come on. The reaction from Jim Jones is definitely valid. But like I said, it makes you just sit back and wonder, where's the consistency in all of this? Because on one aspect, there's a grown conversation to be had. You get what I mean when it comes to, putting the history behind you, right? Max B is coming home after all of these years behind bars, like I can see that side of the conversation. However, as men, once a person violates you as a man, right, speaks on your kids, speaks on your wife, I can understand to a degree why Jim Jones is very resistant when it comes to just wanting to piece it up with Max B, because there was certain things that were done on camera. You know what I mean? The rumors between Max B and his woman. You get what I mean? So that's why I'm looking at Maino crazy, because it's like, yo, why would you even segue from, us talking about working with each other's enemies or affiliating ourselves with, our close friends' enemies? All of that is a touchy subject, especially with Jim Jones right now, because again, one could definitely bring up the fact that Jim hanging out with 50 Cent during the time when Dipset and Junior had their beef, people were looking at Jim crazy, right? And even in this episode, Jim Jones, he kind of talks about regretting crashing out for certain individuals, where it makes you feel like he's talking about Cam, not just Cam, but essentially that's, who Jim Jones was for Cam. And he jumped out there for anybody that went at Cam. And fast forward all these years later, when you see Cam hanging out with, 50 Cent, Jim Jones like, well, damn, why the hell did I even, jump out there in the first place? It's just interesting how, the selective politics work, but now things have changed. You get what I mean? And here we are in 2025. Like I said, Max B, we are actually days away from his release, man. He's getting ready to have his official welcome home party. And it's obvious Maino wanted to pull up, to show support, because again, Max B, he had the wave, And some would say, some of that wave rubbed off on Jim and it helped him with his career. But I think it's a fair exchange, because you can't ignore the impact that Jim had at the time. And granted, he had a lot of talent up under him, but you still needed Jim's resume to make it work. You get what I mean? I know things have changed now in 2025, but, I think they both helped each other. It's just once the disrespect, started being displayed in interviews and on public platforms, that changed everything. You know what I mean? We've seen that before in the past. But like I said, Max B, official welcome home party, just a couple weeks. So, this whole conversation, you got to really, ask yourself, was it worth it? In the end, to take it to that extent of disrespecting Jim's lady, because it seems like that's the one right there that makes Jim be like, nah, I can't rock with homeboy, man. But like I said, sometimes it just feels like selective politics. You know what I mean? Because now that everybody's piecing it up, you got to go back and do the history. Now, the thing is, when it comes to Jim Jones, it's very interesting, because I'm thinking, why not? You know what I'm saying? Why not sit down with Max, behind the scenes, and have that grown conversation, that man-to-man conversation with him, and let him know exactly what it is that bothered you back then. Because again, when you see stuff like this, right? Jim Jones hanging out with Max B's son, I'm thinking like, yo, Jim Jones is ready to get past it. You get what I'm saying? That's what I mean about the selective politicking. Because if I'm Max B and I'm seeing the video, I'm like, well, shit, okay. Now, again, maybe Jim at the time didn't know that was Max B's son, and regardless if he was informed, blindsided, the point is the optics of this, okay? The optics of this, it gives the impression that Jim ain't on that no more. You know what I mean? We got kids now. Our kids are having kids now. You get what I'm saying? Then let's take it back. Let's go back to 2020. Time is flying. Look at this. Can't forget. Shout out all Urban Central. Well, look, can't forget about this. Come on. Jim Jones ends the beef with French Montana. So, listen, selective politics, possible. Very possible. I'll admit. Because again, if you're willing to, you know, end the beef with French, right, who was homies with Max B, come on now. Where does that put Max B? Hell, even French Montana. Come on, they chilling, having a good time. So, you know, I get it. I understand. Now, we got to be real because I got to show the other side of it, which is Max B, right? Because we can't forget, he was getting visits, right? And, yeah, this might be another reason why Jim is, you know, hesitant to end the beef with Max B, and that's because of True Life. Okay, if you don't know your history, do your homework. Okay, that's why we got the internet. But you know, True Life and Jim, they had their beef. But yeah, like I said, the optics of everything, it just seems like selective politics. You know, either Jim is going to sit down and have the conversation with Max when he comes home to put all this behind it, because yo, that was a hell of a movement, man. And if there's any way to just bring it together, why not? And that goes for Jim and Cam as well. Y'all need to end all of that. It's too many artists up under that flag that, you know, could utilize these platforms. I'm seeing podcasts, yo, all the people that was a part of Dipset, you know what I mean? Whether you want to call them first gen, second gen, it don't matter. They all made contributions to keep that Dipset wave alive. You know what I mean? Including Max B. You can't ignore that. You know what I mean? But it's just interesting how we see all of the selective politics play out. You know, it's the same thing when it comes to Cameron and Mace. Come on. I'm sure Jim Jones was feeling a certain type of way after seeing, you know, Cam and Mace back together again. They had their issues. Shit aired out on the radio. That's why I said a lot of the newer fans of rap, y'all got to do your homework, man. This shit is a part of hip-hop history. And when it comes to this back and forth between Jim and Max B, listen, I understand. Just because Max, you know, is in a different part of his life, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't change the fact that Max did what he did, man. It's the same thing with Gucci, man, actually. If you ask me, Gucci right now, if you pay attention to Gucci, you know, he's successful, right? At least by that definition. However, it's obvious that Gucci ruined a lot of relationships going on those rants on social media before he went to jail. And now that he's come home, you know, people are happy for him, right? And his transition. However, people are very hesitant of Gucci because of the things he said on social media. It comes with it, man. That's why you got to be mindful of the things you do in this industry, because, you know, the relationships will take you far, all right? At least the solid ones, the real ones. In this case, like I said, I get it. It's a lot of history behind the scenes, a lot of selective politicking, but, you know, I hope that at some point Jim, Cam, right, they can patch it up and they could just trickle on down to the rest of the artists, because, like I said, it's so many artists up under that Dipset, you know what I'm saying, flag, that banner, or just affiliated with Dipset. Yo, they could utilize these podcast platforms. I'm being real. Instead of sitting down doing interviews with everybody else, yo, create the platform. Come on, the fact that Jim hasn't been on it is what it is. It's crazy. You know what I mean? But again, y'all let me know. Am I bugging with this exchange between Jim Jones and Maino? Because again, we can't forget their little bit of, you know, their beef they had. Can't forget about that. Hold on. Can't forget about that. Let's see here. See what AI got to say about that. Like, now I don't want to pop up. But you can't, you know, can't forget about Maino and, you know, Jim Jones. Like I said, it just makes you wonder, you know, are we homeboys? Are we really trying to go viral? Because you could tell how Jim Jones looked at Maino. Like, come on, yo, I'm not even going to take the bait. And I get it. Maino, he doing content with Angela Yee. Everybody's trying to figure it out when it comes to this content creating space. And like I said, some people, they just hitting the button, blah, on site, and hopes that people will engage and react. Now, granted, I will say these platforms, you know, they're assigned to certain entities, man. These people, they got a whole staff behind the scenes. You get what I mean? That's doing everything. So you can't ignore that as well. Ain't like rappers is just creating YouTube channels and getting straight to the money. Hell no. Okay, there's always a machine behind the face. And in this case, I'm not really certain if, this podcast is independent at the moment, because you see Jim Jones, he's creating his own, podcast platform. But like I said, man, as you can see, the podcasting space is changing, and now artists, they feel inclined to just, say some shit mid-episode in hopes that it go viral. And, here we are tuning in again. I will say, shout out to Cam, excuse me, I said Cam, goddamn. Shout out to him as well, but shout out to Jim Jones, Fab, Maino, and Dave East. You know what I mean? You got to evolve with the times. It's just the only criticism I will say when it comes to their podcast is to allow each other to land, because at times they just be talking over top of each other, and it's hard to really, engage with that if I'm watching from home. It's like, yo, y'all got to give each other some time to really finish, finish your statements, finish your thought, land the plane, so to speak. But aside from that, like I said, man, this is where we at when it comes to Maino and Jim Jones. As you can see, Maino makes another attempt to bring up Max B's name, right? Considering that Max B is days away from coming home, right? Welcome home party. Now we have to monitor who will show up in regards to just, being there to support Max B after all of these years, because again, things have changed, okay? And when it comes to the certain sound that you hear in the rap game today, when I think about A Boogie, when I think about Rod Wave, and, just to name a few, so many melodic rappers, Max B influence. That's just how I feel. You know what I mean? Max was ahead of the curve with all of that. It's just, he allowed himself to get caught up in this situation, and he had to do some time. But now he's coming home officially after so many announcements. This is the real deal. So now we got to wait and see. But y'all let me know. What are your thoughts on Maino bringing up Max B again in the conversation with Jim Jones? Do you think Maino on that bullshit? Or do you think, he's valid in bringing up Max's name, considering the question being asked? I'm just thinking the irony of them talking about Chrissy and Jim Jones, and here come Maino bringing up Max B name, considering the rumors between, Max B and Chrissy. Come on, yo. You smart enough to know what's going on. That's why Jim looking at him like, yo, you see this guy? But again, y'all let me know your thoughts on everything down in the comment section below. With that being said, that's all I got for y'all today. Again, my name is Sensei Rip. Till next time, peace.